162 dead, 84 bombings, 130 arsons, an 11-year-old boy killed by shrapnel while riding his bike, prison guards executed in broad daylight. For 8 years, Montreal became a war zone where cocaine money turned Canada's streets into killing fields. This wasn't gang violence, this was total war, and it remains the deadliest motorcycle club conflict ever documented. The Quebec Biker War didn't start with a shootout or a betrayal. It started with an ultimatum. In 1993, the Hells Angels issued a simple message to every drug dealer in Montreal: buy from us or else. One group refused to bow down. That defiance sparked a conflict that would claim more lives than the New York Mafia wars of the 1970s and 80s combined. The stage was set in December 1977, when the Hells Angels established their first Quebec chapter by absorbing a local gang called the Popeyes. For years, they built their empire methodically, working alongside Montreal's Italian Mafia to control drug distribution throughout the province. The Mafia imported the cocaine from Colombia. The Hells Angels distributed it through street dealers. It was a profitable arrangement that made millions. But by 1993, Hells Angels leader Maurice Boucher wanted more. Boucher wasn't just another biker. He'd risen through the ranks with calculated ruthlessness, and his ambition was absolute. He demanded a monopoly on Montreal's drug trade. Every independent dealer, every small-time gang, every rival crew had to purchase their supply exclusively from the Hells Angels or face the consequences. Standing in his way was Salvatore Cazzetta and his Rock Machine Motorcycle Club, founded in 1986. Cazzetta had built his own network of dealers and refused to surrender his territory. When the Hells Angels issued their ultimatum, Cazzetta responded by forming the Alliance Against the Angels, uniting multiple criminal organizations and independent dealers who opposed Hells Angels' control. July 13, 1994. That's when words became bullets. 3 masked men walked into a motorcycle shop in Montreal's Rivière-des-Prairies neighborhood. They called out to Pierre Daoust, a member of a Hells Angels support club called the Death Riders, making sure they had the right target. Then they opened fire. Daoust died instantly. The Quebec Biker War had begun. The next day, the Rock Machine attempted to kill Normand Robitaille, a member of another Hells Angels support club. He survived and would later become one of the most powerful Hells Angels members in Quebec. Within 48 hours, Quebec's provincial police arrested 5 Rock Machine members attempting to blow up a Hells Angels clubhouse. Maurice Boucher moved swiftly. On July 15th, just 2 days after the first murder, he summoned every Hells Angels chapter in Quebec to an emergency meeting at a hotel in Longueuil. They voted unanimously to go to war, but Boucher had a strategic advantage. The Hells Angels were vastly wealthier, better organized, and more numerous than their rivals. In June 1995, Boucher created something unprecedented. He founded the Nomads, an elite Hells Angels chapter with no geographic boundaries. Unlike other chapters tied to specific territories, the Nomads could operate anywhere in Quebec. To join required absolute loyalty demonstrated through murder. This wasn't just an enforcement unit. It was an execution squad designed to eliminate the competition without mercy. The violence escalated rapidly. Drive-by shootings became routine. Car bombs exploded on residential streets. Businesses suspected of ties to rival gangs were firebombed. By January 1996, just 18 months after the war began, 28 people were dead. Then came August 9th, 1995, a day that changed everything. Marc Dubé, a drug dealer affiliated with the Hells Angels, walked to his Jeep parked across from the Saint-Nom de Jesus school in Hochelaga Maisonneuve. It was summer vacation. Children were playing nearby. At 12:40 p.m., Dubé got into his vehicle. The explosion was massive. The Jeep was thrown into the air. Windows shattered across the street. Metal fragments flew in every direction. One of those fragments struck 11-year-old Daniel Desrochers in the head. He'd been riding his bike with friends. 4 days later, Daniel died in the hospital. He was supposed to start grade 6 in a few weeks. Daniel Desrochers became the war's first innocent victim. His death ignited public fury across Quebec. Suddenly, This wasn't just criminals killing criminals. An 11-year-old child had been murdered because grown men wanted to control cocaine distribution. The outcry was immediate and intense. On October 5, 1995, the federal, provincial, and Montreal governments launched Operation Carcajou, an elite joint task force combining the best detectives from the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, the Sûreté du Québec, and Montreal's police force. Their mission was to end the biker war and bring those responsible for Daniel's death to justice. But Operation Carcajou faced enormous challenges. Political infighting between Quebec's separatist government and the federal government in Ottawa created dysfunction. Different police agencies competed rather than cooperated. Meanwhile, the bodies kept piling up. Maurice Boucher, however, made a catastrophic calculation. He believed the justice system was his enemy, and he decided to attack it directly. His reasoning was tactical, but insane. Boucher noticed that hitmen who turned informant often received favorable plea bargains. To prevent this, he decided the Hells Angels needed to commit crimes so heinous that prosecutors could never offer deals. He chose to target prison guards. On June 26, 1997, two Hells Angels prospects, Stéphane Gagné and André Toussaint, shot and killed prison guard Diane Lavigne as she walked home from her shift at Montreal's Bordeaux jail. When Gagné reported the killing to Boucher and mentioned he'd killed a woman, Boucher's response was chilling. "That's good, godass. It doesn't matter that she had tits." 3 months later, on September 8th, Gagné and Paul Fontaine ambushed a prison transport van leaving Rivière-des-Prairies prison. They murdered prison guard Pierre Rondeau and wounded Robert Corriveau, who barely survived. These weren't drug dealers or rival gang members. These were government employees murdered simply because of their jobs. Boucher's strategy backfired spectacularly. Instead of intimidating the justice system, he gave prosecutors exactly what they needed to pursue him relentlessly. And he made a fatal error in trusting Stéphane Gagné. In December 1997, Gagné was arrested and immediately turned informant. He provided detailed testimony about both murders and directly implicated Maurice Boucher as the mastermind. Boucher was arrested on December 18, 1997. But the war wasn't over. Behind the scenes, a ghost was gathering intelligence. His name was Danny Kane. Since November 1994, Kane had been working as an informant for the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. He was a member of the Rockers, a Hells Angels support club, and served as a driver and bodyguard for high-ranking members. Kane had unprecedented access to the inner workings of the organization. For years, Kane fed information to the RCMP about drug trafficking networks, planned murders, bomb plots, and the Nomads operations. He attended meetings, overheard conversations, and documented everything. Kane's intelligence was instrumental in understanding how the Hells Angels operated at the highest levels. But Kane was living a dangerous double life. He was involved in at least 11 murders while working as an informant, which raised serious questions about police oversight. On August 6, 2000, Kane was found dead in his garage in suburban Montreal. His death was ruled a suicide, though questions persist. His suicide note revealed his inner torment. Who am I? Am I a biker? Am I a policeman? Am I good or evil? Kane died just weeks before he was scheduled to receive a substantial financial settlement and relocation under a new identity. His information, however, had already set the stage for what came next. March 28, 2001. Operation Springtime. In the largest coordinated police operation in Canadian history, hundreds of officers from multiple agencies arrested 139 people across Canada. Maurice Boucher and 41 of his closest associates were charged with murder and drug trafficking. The Nomads chapter was effectively destroyed. Boucher stood trial for a second time in 2002. The first trial in 1998 had ended in acquittal due to problematic jury instructions. But this time, with Stéphane Gagné's testimony and mountains of evidence, the verdict was different. On May 6, 2002, Maurice Boucher was found guilty of 2 counts of first-degree murder and 1 count of attempted murder. He received 3 concurrent life sentences with no chance of parole for 25 years. The Rock Machine, meanwhile, had sought international support by patching over to become the Bandidos in January 2001. But in June 2002, Operation Bandito targeted the newly formed Bandidos Canada, arresting 62 members, including all their Quebec leadership. With both sides' leaders in custody, the Quebec biker war finally ended. The final toll was staggering: 162 people dead, including 9 innocent civilians. Over 84 bombings, 130 arsons. More than 300 people wounded, 20 individuals missing and presumed dead. American journalist Julian Rubinstein wrote in March 2002 that considering how little attention the conflict attracted outside Canada, the numbers were staggering. The war achieved what Maurice Boucher set out to accomplish, but at an unimaginable cost. The Hells Angels emerged victorious, consolidating control over Quebec's drug trade. But that victory came at the expense of public trust, political will to prosecute organized crime, and countless destroyed lives. Maurice Boucher died in prison on July 10, 2022, at age 69 from cancer. He'd spent his final years in Canada's only supermax prison, surviving multiple assassination attempts by inmates who wanted the infamy of killing Mom Boucher. The Quebec Biker War stands as the deadliest motorcycle club conflict in recorded history. It demonstrated how the pursuit of drug money could transform organized crime into urban warfare. And it showed that when criminals decide to wage war in civilian spaces, innocent people always pay the ultimate price. Daniel Desrochers never got to start grade 6. Diane Levine and Pierre Rondeau never made it home from work. They weren't casualties of war. They were victims of greed,